All right, and now we have an incredible panel here today that consists of some very successful individuals who have previously received services through vocational rehabilitation. We also have a vocational rehabilitation counselor as a panel member as well. So what we're going to do is going to allow them to introduce themselves by telling us their names and what they do, and we'll get to know them a little bit more later. So let me see who I have on my screen and we'll go by that. I have on my screen first, let's see, Dina.
Oh,
hey,
hi,
Dina.
everybody. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Dina Lambert. I live in the Maryland, DC area, and I work for NASA as a project manager. And actually, I was going to tell you guys that I just took an assignment at our Mississippi facility. So, but I'll still be in Maryland.
Okay. That's awesome. Thank you, Dina. All right, so let's see. I see Gary Horton next. Hello, Mr. Horton.
Hello, my name is Gary Horton. I'm the president of Vanward Consulting Services, currently offering pre-employment and transition services for young people, as well as job readiness and job placement services for those that are blind and so-called visually impaired, living in scenic Franklin, Michigan.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. All right, we have David up next. Hello, David.
Yes, hello. It is so nice to be with everyone today. My name is David Dino Terrace, and we own a company, Sky's the Limit Communications. We deliver a variety of training programs for schools and universities, state agencies, and Fortune 500 companies on the topics of leadership, diversity, and resiliency. We're honored to work with several state agencies delivering advocacy, employability, and career exploration programs. And like you, I believe in the potential of people who are blind, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, great to have you. So those were all of our former VR consumer panel members. And next up, we have our VR counselor panel member, Michelle. Hello, Michelle.
Hi there. So I have been, my name is Michelle Edge, and I've been with Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities since July of '99, and I've been a counselor that entire time, working in the Bureau of Services for the visually impaired. And I'm a certified rehab counselor, and I currently work in the Ravenna, Kent area. Kent State University is probably the biggest thing around us. So, but that's where I'm located at.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. So you see, we have some great panel members. So we're excited to hear from them. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about our goal for this webinar. So our main topics for discussion during this webinar is: why is work important? What is vocational rehabilitation? What is the role of the VR counselor? What is the role of the consumer? What services does VR provide? And what is the rehabilitation team? Now, I do want to tell you that this is going to be an interactive webinar, so we'll have the opportunity to hear from our panel members. And those of you attending this webinar will have the opportunity to provide some feedback in the chat. And you can, at the end, you'll be able to unmute yourselves and ask some questions of our panel members, who I'm sure are excited about that. So awesome, awesome. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk about why is work important. All right, so since the ultimate goal of VR is employment, so we're going to start off by talking about why work is important. Now, we all know that work is a core value in America. Now, whether you consider work, whether it's a right in your eyes or privilege, it's definitely an expectation that is placed on people who don't have vision loss, and likewise should be expected of those who have vision loss. So a statistic that I find interesting, and it's from the American Community Survey, is that 46% of people with vision loss are in the workforce. And this is compared with 79% of those without disabilities. So we see how important it is for people with vision loss to gain employment and learn about those services that can help them to gain employment. So we get to our first panel question. So in addition to the financial benefits of work, why is work important in general and as a person with vision loss. So who wants to start us out here? I'm going to pick someone.
I'm not shy.
Oh, sorry. This is Michelle.
Ladies first.
I was just going to say work is important because work is more than just the financial need. There is, you meet people, you have work relationships, camaraderie, teamwork. I mean, you build on all of those types of skills. And somebody who is blind or visually impaired should have the ability to do the same thing and be part of, the working people. I was going to say the working class. So.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Michelle. All right, Gary.
What I've found during my transition from having vision to being visually impaired is that you can tend, if you lose your vision, to isolate yourself, and isolation is never good. Maybe for a monk, it might be good for a monk. Maybe the Dalai Lama can isolate, but human beings have to engage with other human beings. And to keep your mind fresh, you have to be focused on activities, things to do, and work is just one of the ways of doing that, right? So I think it has a lot to do with self-esteem. Self-esteem has a lot to do with how you see yourself. And if you see yourself in a positive, if you see yourself positively, you're probably going to behave and be healthier. That's what I would say about work. And, my wife likes nice things. So that's part of it too. That's a very important component.
Yes, that too is very important. David and then Dina.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, Contrice, I was so honored to have leadership roles in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, and help lots of people find real jobs with real pay. And it was, it was never about finding a job, right? You could job, because a job is just over broke, right? And job is just over broke, and it's not about and I wanted to help people find like their career. What's even better is like what you're calling. Like Mark Twain said, find a job you'll love and you'll never work another day in your life. What are your skills? What are your talents? What are your gifts? What are you really good at? And then we start working from there. And so I think, work is just an opportunity for you to continue to work on being the best that you can be, so you can help everyone around you be them, so they can be the best that they can be. So work, I think, it helps you to be your authentic self if you're doing what you love to do.
Thank you, David. How about you, Dana? You have anything else to add to the conversation?
I think these are awesome thoughts, and I could, only echo what everyone else is saying. But I think, just socially, in our society, when you meet someone, unfortunately, or fortunately, the first question that you are asked usually is, "What do you do?" And
Right.
I think when we are able to answer that question, not with just a job, because a job can definitely suck the life out of you. But if we're able to confidently say, hey, my skill sets are in, IT or in education, and it gives us like a sense of pride, that also connects us to other people in our society, not just with our coworkers, but with our neighbors. And it brings us in the rhythm of what society is and does, which is based off of people having a profession.
Awesome. Thank you all, panel members. I'm excited to hear more when we ask more questions just a little bit later. So thank you so much, because that is so important to talk about. Why is work important in the first place? Because some people are on the fence even about working. And we know that, with the training, resources, services, and tools necessary, people with vision loss can get a job, can maintain their job. And then that's why things like this is so important. Having you here is so important to talk about that. All right. So let's go ahead. We're going to move to our next slide, and we're going to talk about vocational rehabilitation. So vocational rehabilitation programs, and this is for those who don't know a lot about VR and want to know more about it, have been available in the United States for over 100 years. So what is it? So VR is a federally and state-funded program, and it provides services to people with vision loss and other disabilities. VR is available in every state, and the services that are provided are designed to help people with disabilities to gain and maintain employment. And it's not just a job, as mentioned earlier, but we want to help people to gain a career, something that they enjoy doing. Our services are individualized. So this basically means that services, they are tailored to meet each individual's needs, their interests, their abilities, preferences, capabilities, their informed choice, and so on. So now, because the needs of people with vision loss, they tend to be different than those with other disabilities. Some states have separate agencies for those with vision loss, so they don't receive services, from the same agencies as those who may have another disability. There's a separate agency sometimes in some states. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put into the chat, if you want to find out more about the VR program in your state, I'm going to put in the chat where you can go to find out more. That's a link to askjan.org, and they have a list of all state VR programs.
So great.
And that's important information to have. And also, you could just simply Google vocational rehab in whatever state that you live in to find out how to, receive services and more about the program in your state. All right, so now we have a chat. And so what I want you to do is put true or false, or you can put T or F instead in the chat box. All right, so here's the statement. To be eligible for VR services, a person must have a disability, require VR to prepare for, secure, retain, or regain employment, and must be able to benefit from services when it comes to an employment outcome. So you can put true or false in the chat. We have some truths. We have a whole lot of truths so far. Awesome. So I see that we have people that are available and here and know the answer to this question. Exactly. That answer is definitely true. And so, so that's what is expected. If you're seeking to receive vocational rehab services, you must be interested in gaining employment, gaining or maintaining the employment that you do have. So thank you. Someone put in there that my voice is breaking up. I'm not sure what to do about that. Hopefully, let's see. Hopefully that changes. I may end up changing to a headset to see if that works better. And I'll cut my volume up as well. Thank you for letting me know about that, Karen. All right, so thank you for answering those questions in the chat. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move to slide 5. All right, so the general VR process. So this is important to kind of mention so that people will know what to expect. So of course, there's a referral, and someone can be self-referred or referred by someone such as a family member, a medical provider, a friend, etc. It can be done by submitting a form online, by calling in, or as a walk-in. So typically that's the first step is the referral to VR. And then of course, there's the application. Now, at application is where people typically meet their vocational rehabilitation counselor or VRC for the first time. You learn more about the program. The VR counselor get to know a little bit about you and your story and why you are applying for services. Now, it's so important to know why you are applying for services in the first place, and that VR counselor will help you to kind of expound on that, on those services that will help you to be able to meet your goals. Of course, after that, we have eligibility. Now, your visual impairment must be evaluated to determine if you are eligible for the program. And this can take up to 60 days and can be extended if it's agreed upon by you and your counselor. So evaluation is done through medical records and so on. Now, as far as Nexus services, now these are the services that you discuss with your VR counselor. You all agreed upon that it's going to help you to be able to get your goals or maintain your goals or achieve your goals. So it's important for you to know as an individual what services you need. Yes, the counselor is there to guide you, but the more information you know, the better it is for you, because see, you are responsible for yourself. And then the VR counselor has a whole caseload of other people that they're responsible for. So that's important to keep in mind as well. And then, of course, there is employment, which is the exciting part, which is what we really, really want to get to, is that employment. We want that employment to be something that you're interested in, you're capable of doing, that you're motivated to do. And you and your VR counselor will work together for that. And before case closure, which is the last step, you will need to have maintained your employment and be satisfied with it. You all need to work together to overcome any obstacles that may happen on that job. So I see there's a question in the chat. Let's see. I have a question. Since I missed the last 4 slides, is there a way I could get the PowerPoint emailed to me, please? And thank you. Thank you, Lacey. So this will be available as a recording. So you'll be able to watch that recording, and I'll be happy to send you a PDF of the slides as well. You can just send me your email address. You can feel free to put it in the chat as well. Or you can just email it to cmoffett@khaled.msstate.edu. Of course, you won't remember that probably, so I'll give it to you again at the end. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll, let's see. I have a question for our VR counselor panel member, Michelle. All right. So how, let's see. So, okay, this is my first question. So if a delay in services occur, at what stage is most likely to take place and why? And I'm gonna tell them why I'm asking this question, because sometimes there can be a concern why are services, taking so long, things of that nature. So I think it's important to kind of talk about if a delay in services occur, at what stage is it most likely to take place and why?
My experience has been, the biggest delay has been with trying to get medical records. So at the, once you've met and done the application, but you need to make them eligible for services. And I don't know anywhere else, but here in Northeast Ohio, some of the bigger hospitals, it's so hard to get records from. But then, we do have the ability to do assessments for people, if we need to. And that has been, delays there with the number of people. I think COVID kind of changed that whole scenario to where not as many people can be in the office. So they, space it out, which then in turn, they have less people that they're able to see in a given day. So, so that part affects eligibility as well as planning. But the biggest issue for me has been really from application to eligibility, and then probably second from eligibility to planning. And it's just a matter of, again, getting the records. I don't know what other states are doing as well, but we're working virtually. I'm back in the office full time, but I'm an embedded staff person at the Ohio Means Jobs, but we're still not really supposed to be going out seeing people. So sometimes getting like the releases has been difficult. And that's all with the, since COVID and we've been virtually working. That's been another big area, is just getting releases signed. But we had a lot of different things going on, like our mail was going to Cleveland, and then Cleveland was sending, like once a week or something. I mean, it was just crazy. So that's where all those delays came in too. So that's COVID related, but in normal everyday life, it's the medical records for me, going from application to eligibility.
Okay, thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
So I have a question to kind of follow up with that, and either one of you, you, Michelle, and as well as anyone on the panel who can chime in on it. And I'm gonna, while y'all answer that, I'm gonna find my headset because I'm told that I'm still having some issues. So I'm gonna grab that out. But so this is my next question. How can vocational rehab counselors and consumers work together to minimize delay? I
Okay.
asked it again just in case it didn't go through. How can vocational rehab counselors and consumers work together to minimize delay?
I know what I've been doing lately is a lot of times, again, the bigger hospitals have a My Chart. So I've asked them to get, documentation that way if they're able to, if there's a diagnosis and such on it. So they go on there, they, print it and, email it to me or something like that just to save time. A lot of times too, and this is more the counselor, if we've had the person here before, like we've worked with them at another time, you can go to past records, see what kind of information was in there, and if any of it's still relevant, especially with, certain types of vision loss. If their vision is very poor, it's not going to get better. So you can use the older, records that you have, and that'll help speed things up as well.
So
Thanks, Michelle.
I'd be happy to give that a shot, Miss Countries.
Okay, sounds good.
And so I would say that, like any relationship, communication is the key, and we must be good communicators. We must, if a counselor asks us for some information, we need to get them the information. It's not 2 weeks, next week, next month. We're dealing with people who have caseloads of 30, 50, 80, 100 people. So if we need to be good communicators, and we need to expect that our counselors are going to be good communicators. And I really think like that's really the key, and to stay organized, and I think also, stay in contact with your counselor, because Ms. Contreras, I've heard many times in New Jersey and in Pennsylvania, I get a phone call, my counselor didn't find me a job. And I'd say, I'm not really surprised to hear that. I don't really think it's their job to find you a job. I think it's their job to help you get the training and a positive philosophy and the services, so that we could all work together to help them find a job. So when I hear my counselor didn't find me a job, I was really never that surprised. So that's what I think. Good communication and positive expectations should work out.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And thank you again, Michelle. I'm hoping you all can hear me better now. I did change my headset. Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. All right, great. All right, so I see in the chat, Jody mentioned, I am a VR counselor in West Virginia, and our agency has now went to scanned signatures being acceptable. Okay, that's another thing. That's great. Those medical records, I can attest to that as a VR counselor. Those medical records were a challenge to receive. And so any help that the consumer can provide in that process will only make things better, make things more efficient. So thank you for those good points that you all made. And is so important when it comes to working together. All right. So now we're to VR counselors. And I must say, my opinion is that being a vocational rehabilitation counselor is one of the most rewarding jobs that you could ever do. Like it's an awesome job to have. So VR services, they are carried out and coordinated by VR counselors through the process of counseling and guidance. VR counselors are encouraged to receive master's level training to help them to gain the knowledge and skills to work effectively with individuals with disabilities and to help them to achieve their goals. So now I'm into my next panel question, and this is for you, Michelle. Let's see. What inspired you to become a vocational rehab counselor, and how do you see your role?
What inspired me was in high school. And it's funny, my whole family has kind of been, for my grandmother, we have an agency where I grew up called Hattie Larlam Foundation. And it's a residential facility for children and young adults that have profound disabilities. So like my grandmother had worked there, and then I ended up volunteering there. And then I really enjoyed it. And I knew I wanted to go in that field. And then I majored my undergrads in speech and audiology. And I really enjoyed the technology piece of that course. And that's kind of what brought me to, it's funny, initially I said, I'm going to be a counselor. I want to counsel, I am so not, tell me all your troubles and I'll help you sort. That is not me. I'm more of a partner. When we're looking at work, because I said I don't want to do the work piece, and then I ended up doing the work piece, and I didn't know anything about vision loss per se, except that like I wear glasses, so I was familiar with that. But learning all of that has been so gratifying. I mean, learning about, having experienced, what my big thing that I like about working with the people with vision impairments and blindness is that my caseload is it's varied. I don't have, just transition students. I don't have just, this caseload. I have kids as young as 14, and I think my oldest is 78. So you get a wide variety, which keeps me on my toes, I think. That's the thing about it. But I see myself as a partner working with the person. Let's talk about what you want to do. Where my knowledge comes in is I kind of know what's out there, for the most part in regard to technology, and working with the different low vision specialists, mobility instructors. I had a guy I'm working with now who was injured by a gunshot and lost his vision suddenly. So now I'm working with a state agency that's out of our state, because I feel like it would be the best fit for him to be immersed into the training rather than receiving it from home, and having people come there. So we're working on that. So that's what's fun. I guess that's the most gratifying for me, is being able to help someone see that in themselves, participate, and just watching them, become more independent and finally get that job.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I think that is so important to hear and to share, because a lot of times VR consumers don't necessarily know, like, why is this person here? Like, why is this person even trying to help me? And so to know the background to that, because every VR counselor has a story to why they're passionate about doing what they're doing. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to move on, because in our discussion on VR, I think it is important to discuss the rehab team as well, because it's not just the VR counselor and the consumer that's on the team. The services provided by other members of the team are also essential to helping those with vision loss to transition to work. So we're going to talk more about the rehabilitation team. Well, let's go ahead. No, we're going to go to our consumers first. Let's go to consumers first, because that's a very important part. Then we go to the team as a whole. So in VR, those receiving services are mostly referred to as consumers, customers, or participants. And a lot of time it just depends on the state that you're in. I've heard them all. These titles, what they do, they aim to highlight that these individuals are not just recipients of services, but they have an important and active role in the process. Now, in the VR process, these services are entitled to information that allow them to make informed choices. So the council are not making all these decisions alone. It's a partnership, as Michelle mentioned earlier. And if we take a moment to think about it, consumer, participant, and customer, we think about these individuals have a choice about what they consume, what they participate in, what they buy. And this is the same with VR. People have a choice about the services they will receive and those who will provide those services. So to my consumer panel members or former consumer panel members, would you take about 2 to 3 minutes to tell us about your journey to vocational rehab, the services you receive, and your role? How do you see your role as a consumer? I've heard some of you kind of talk about the role as a consumer already, but tell us a little bit about your journey and what services you received. So let's see. Dina, could you start us off?
Sure. So I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. And at the time, Voc Rehab Services had a youth component to it. So actually, my VR counselor would attend various IEP meetings that I had along with the itinerant or TVI that I had. And, you know, as I kind of matriculated from through high school, we began talking about college or what field I would want to go into. There was some independent living skills component that the vocational rehab teacher did directly from the agency. But I think their model has changed, so they may not do as much of youth services now. But as once I graduated from college, you know, we did discuss, you know, what funding might be available. The idea was that I would try to secure outside resources in addition to whatever vocational rehab provided. A quick example is early on, I wanted to purchase my own type and speak. If people back in the day remember Blazy Engineering, there, you know, I had a type and speak. Now, vocational rehab could have purchased that equipment for me, but, you know, of course, they have to go through their own procurement processes, and it would not have been mine. But part of the vocational rehab goal that I had at the time was to, you know, identify a job I could do as a teenager, start developing budgeting skills, and I was able to purchase my own equipment that was mine. And later on, Voc Rehab did assist with transitioning from Arkansas to where I am now in the DC area by providing O&M services in the area, and you know, that sort of thing. But what the biggest component that I received from Voc Rehab was the mentoring. Many of the VR counselors and VR teachers were blind themselves. As a low vision or visually impaired, someone with residual vision, my parents, my family did not believe in the idea of me using my own cane. So actually sitting down, having lunch, seeing all the counselors navigating the building using their canes, you know, it was great to have those conversations with someone I had confidence in to, you know, explore, okay, what are the tools that I want to use for myself, and to explore the option of using a cane or a guide dog or whatever it may be. And I would say that a big portion of that was mentoring.
Got you. Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you. How about you, Gary?
Okay, you know, as I'm listening to this discussion, it occurs to me that just like with anything else in life, it's not one size fits all. And I think the key is the right balance of personality, interest, and who drives. My relationship with my visual rehab counselor is I drove, she guided, right? Tell me what the services are. Listen, when I lost my vision 4 years ago, I lived an entire life. I knew that I was going to lose my vision in my 50s. The specialists had been telling me that. Mentally, I was already preparing in the background for it, but you never know until you drop off the cliff. Once you drop off the cliff, like with any other time in my life, and I would say this to anybody, whether they're visually impaired, or not impaired at all, you stop, mourn, assess, plan, execute. So when I met my visual rehab counselor, I wanted to know one thing. What services do you have to have me become employed again? And if those services are not the kind of services that I really need, then I do my own thing. That is to say, I didn't need to learn Braille. I drove my program. My visual rehab counselor listened. Now, if I'm a different type of customer, I would suspect that she would have had a different approach. I think if you want to have a successful recovery, it has to be centered in you, and you have to drive it. If you do not drive it, the power dynamic of the counselor could possibly work against a person. And I want to be very clear about that. I'm a very focused, aggressive, planning guy when I had vision and when I don't have vision. So what was great about my counselor is she listened and she gave me what I asked for when I asked for it, and she provided advice when I needed it. From the time that I became disabled, quote unquote, to the time that I was employed was about 90 days. That happened because I was focused. And I just want to, with due respect, as I say, everyone's different. In my way of thinking, every job that pays you income, every single one of them that pays you income helped you to achieve an ultimate objective. I'd love to be Willie Horton and hit home runs, but I'm not Willie Horton. I'm Gary Horton. Therefore, if I'm trying to get to an objective, I may have to take some steps to get to that objective. I just don't become president of my own organization just because I wish it. Sometimes to get to that place, you have to take other jobs as long as you know that those jobs are on a path. I agree, taking a no job that goes in a circle is one thing, but taking a job that's a step in an entire plan, an entire journey, absolutely take that BS job. Take it, put the money in the bank, make your next step and move. So I just wanted to add that. And I would add that to anybody, whether I have a background in staffing. So I've employed a lot of people, found a lot of jobs for people, even before I lost my vision. So that's just kind of my attitude about work. There's always value in a job that you're doing. It's the money that you earn, and it's the things that you learn. That's how you value a job, any job. I'm sorry. I don't want to soapbox here, but that's pretty much my journey. I think the summarizing your question, it is best when you as the customer are driving, to the extent that a visual rehab counselor can help you identify that vision, that vision. I think that is the most valuable thing that a visual rehab counselor can do for anyone, because once a person has a vision, then it's all about just what steps do you have to take to achieve that vision.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you for your perspective on that. And also, Dina, thank you as well. And last but not least, we have David. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how do you see your role as a consumer?
Oh, very good. So I'm fascinated by hearing everyone's story. Everyone's story is different. Everyone's got a different. I went through the New Jersey Commission for the Blind, and it was a tremendous system. It is a tremendous system, and when I was in high school, I had a counselor that told me that I couldn't go to college, and that just that blind people didn't go to college to get degrees in communications and marketing, and that blind people, I was told, got jobs as teachers or social workers, and I had to pick one of those. And I thought those were nice jobs. I went home and told my mother, and I said, but I really don't want to do that. I don't want to be a teacher or a social worker. And those are great jobs, and I don't want to do it. My mother said, well, then we'll, go to college and we'll figure it out. So the Commission for the Blind didn't buy my my goal, my vocational goal. And so they didn't help me in college. After I did graduate college, I learned, that I needed to communicate with them better. And I learned that if I didn't provide what they needed, that they couldn't provide me services. So, I didn't always agree with their approach, and I know they didn't always agree with my approach. But then I learned that my counselor, that we were all on the same team, It can't be an us, them, we, them, me, you. It's got to be, it's got to be a team. And so once I learned that, I had a very nice relationship with my another VR counselor that I had, and I told her about a job that I learned about through another friend, and she encouraged me to apply for that job, and I wound up getting that job. But sometimes it's not always going to be a great match. Hopefully it will, but sometimes it's not. And then sometimes, oh, maybe I can get another counselor. We just need to do our best to figure out, that there's the common goal, the common mission is to help the consumer to be competitively employed or achieve whatever goal that they want to achieve. And so I think it's it takes teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. And if everyone, the best trip you'll ever take is meeting somebody in the middle. So doing your best to work with your counselor and providing them, I think is so that was my experience. It sometimes was really good and sometimes wasn't so good, but things turn out the best for people who make the best of the way things turn out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, David. And what I'm hearing from this conversation, which I love, is that what you all are doing is painting a realistic picture of what your experiences are. And you're talking about the importance of the consumer being the lead, because it's your case. You're going to be the one that's working. So it's important to lead in your way. Also, to be able to advocate for yourself. If you don't feel like you're receiving, the services that you may need to reach your particular goal, because it's your vocational goal that you're seeking.
That's right.
Make sure to talk about that. Don't just go with the flow. And you determine what that flow is. And it's also, I'm hearing from you all, it's about accountability as well.
That's right.
Like, it's not, what you mentioned earlier, David, was about my counselor didn't find me a job. Well, what steps did you do to help yourself to be able to find a job?
That's right.
What steps are you doing yourself? So I'm really loving this conversation and the realistic picture that you all are painting. So we don't have a whole lot of time, and I really want to get to more questions from the panel. So I'm gonna briefly talk about the rehabilitation team, which is all a part of those services being what they need to be to help people to achieve their goals. So I'm going to start off this with a quote. So Phil Jackson, famous coach of the Bulls and Lakers, he stated that the strength of the team is each individual member. The strength of each member is the team. Now, with that thought in mind, I could say that the following is true. The success of the consumer depends on the support of the rehabilitation team. And I think the support part is what matters the most. Like, we're not driving it. We're there to support, and we need to make sure members of the team are there to support people with achieving their goal. But with that, it requires information. It requires that the consumer be informed. And so that's what I'm hoping that this webinar can be, is a part of getting that information out there to consumers and potential consumers. And as we stated, services are better when we all work together. So it's not a tug and pull, it's a team. So although each consumer's team members, they may not all be the same. And so I'm just going to mention some of the basic team members on the rehabilitation team. We have, of course, the consumer, most important, the vocational rehabilitation counselor, orientation mobility specialist, vocational rehabilitation therapist, and a rehabilitation teacher. And the team may consist of many other members, including assistive technology specialists, social worker, medical doctors, ophthalmic professionals, and the list goes on. It's all individualized based on that person's needs. So let's put in the chat. So this is what I want you to put in the chat. Who or what determines the composition of the rehabilitation team? Who determines who will be on the rehabilitation team? And if you can put that in the chat for me quickly, your thoughts on that? Not all at once. I'm not seeing anything yet.
They got to type. Got to give them a
Okay.
chance to type.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you. So you don't have to put everybody, you can just do some abbreviations. And it's kind of been said quite a few times. Who determines who the rehabilitation team will consist of? So since there is a delay, so Gary, what would you say the answer is?
I think I have to tell you, I can only speak for myself. I can speak for myself in working as at least in the pre-eds program. I think to the extent that you drive it, you should drive it. I think the visual rehab counselor is there to support you. That means if you have a glass that's oil and water, and the oil is you and the water is your counselor, the more oil that you have in your glass, the less water that you need. So if you don't have a lot of knowledge about jobs, yourself, skills, then you need to get that information from your counselor. If you have those skills, if you have that knowledge, then it is not required. So to me, the counselor, this is Gary Horton speaking, the counselor is supportive of what I'm attempting to achieve. And what I'm attempting to achieve is employment. And if that is what I'm trying to achieve, is think of it this way. I'll just paint this picture for you. I think of my brain as a big room that's full of drawers. Those drawers have information in them. And when one of those drawers is empty, then I thirst for the knowledge. If I already have the knowledge, I have it. So the visual rehab counselor to me, and which team members I need, are driven by my wants. I was a traveling consultant, so I needed a mobility. Okay, my wife is a dentist. She's here all day. So I didn't need some of the other skills as soon. I have an IT background, so I only needed a little bit of technical training and just the JAWS manual. I didn't need 15 weeks of that. I didn't need to go off site for 6 weeks. I needed some specific things to get me back into the game. So it's driven largely who determines the team, or the most important team member is the customer. And to the extent that the customer doesn't know what they want, then I think the value is for the counselor to try with a number of techniques to get to that answer. Because once a person knows what it is they're trying to accomplish, the mind will focus them to achieve it. That's what I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. And I see Dina, do you have anything to add or?
Yeah. So what sometimes I do hear a lot of people equate kind of like their VR counselor or the VR agency as like the oracle of all information, which when you're new to blindness, that it can feel that way. But knowing, doing some recruiting for NASA and the federal government, unfortunately, we may not be going to the VR agencies for the opportunities that we have. I mean, we hope the government will utilize VR agencies for that. But what I would say is that the informal members of the VR team could also be the society, professional societies that you want to enter in, whether it's the Society of Black Engineers or someone from your church or whatever. There are outside resources that the VR counselor can help support you in those networking endeavors. But the VR counselor is not, just like I believe it was Gary saying that is not just the driver. I mean, it's more of a support role, but knowing that there are outside resources that can help complement what your VR team is doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dina. So we only have a few minutes left. So I do want to open the floor to participants of this webinar. If you have any questions for our panel members, could you please, you can unmute yourself at this time so that we can get your question in. Does anyone have any questions? So I don't hear anyone unmuting themselves. So let me go. I have one question. Well, I have a lot of questions, but this webinar has been so great that we haven't got a chance to get to them. So let me see, what question do I want that to be? Okay, so I'm gonna ask one of Michelle and then one of our consumer panel members. What are your expectations of a consumer? If you can quickly tell us what's an expectation you have of a consumer who applies for services, what would you like to receive from them?
I would like them to be a participant, meaning if I ask, can you do this or that, that they're able to do that. If they're not able to, I mean, I'm there to assist them, but wanting them to be involved, I guess, is the big thing, and being participating in services.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And let's see, for our consumer panel members, let's see. So let me ask you this. So I'll do it a little bit different. What personal attributes did you have as a consumer, and you probably still have them, of course, that help you to be successful? So what are those attributes that you have personally that help you to be successful in the VR process? Dina, you want to go first?
Sure. I think a willingness to receive feedback and use that as an opportunity for growth and a bit of accountability, without slipping into the depths of depression and woe is me, and which is easy to do. I mean, especially when you've gotten 50 rejection letters, it's easy to go down there. But I think having a teachable spirit or a teachable attitude, being resilient. I know that's a big popular word now. I think also being organized. If I know that either I haven't heard back from an employer, or being proactive and initiating conversation or whatever, I think it's helped out a lot. Because it makes me a little bit harder to forget.
Okay.
But in a kind and humble way. I think that's having a maybe like a gracious but confident attitude. I think that's what helped.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. So we have Gary and David. Either one of y'all could go next. Both of y'all, want y'all to go next, and we'll close it out there.
I'll say if I had to use one word, it would be perseverance. That is the most important skill. I would say every person that is faced with a disability, whatever it might be, and that's everybody, because all of us have one. All of us do. That's the first thing to remember. All of us have a disability. Every single one of us walking around on earth today has a disability. I think every one of those individuals, myself included, should read and follow the book, Think and Grow Rich. It all starts here in your brain. Think and Grow Rich will give you the plan for success, for accepting change, for finding what you need to get what you want. That is, at the end of the day, the most important thing. And it is, if you talk to any, from Andrew Carnegie to Steve Jobs, same thing. Mike Zuckerberg, same thing. Same thing. Understand, vision, plan, execute. And you will gain confidence from that activity, and you will achieve what it is that you want. The problem that most people have is they don't know what they want. So if you're a visual rehab counselor, the journey is trying to find that cheese. What is the thing that excites that individual is really what it comes down to. Because once you got that, then everything else takes care of itself, in my opinion.
Awesome. Thank you, Gary. And David.
What was the question again? I'm sorry. I'm just here. I'm just listening. It's so good, Miss Contrice. I'm just what was it? I don't even know what to say. It's so good. What was your question?
I guess if you want to give like a final tip to people
thought. Yep. Well, I would say that you don't have to be brilliant to be resilient, and that employers, what a job opening is they have these problems to solve, And I truly believe that individuals with disabilities are the best problem solvers in the world. We're constantly figuring out ways to adjust and adapt and to overcome. Adjust, adapt, and overcome. And so with our VR counselor, I love that question. Who else is on that team? Your VR counselor. Make sure that you know how, like, I talk about the ABCs, Miss Countries. I talk about the ABCs. A is access equals success. When we can access the same information as our classmates, colleagues, or peers, we can get the same education, the same trainings, and the same jobs. The B is for the ABCs. The B is for Braille or for literacy. We must be literate. We must be able to write things down. You can't just think it. You got to ink it, right? You got to be able to write things down. How do you take notes? So if you don't know how to take notes right now, like I have my Braille display right here, how do you take notes? If that's something that we need, if you can't take notes, you're going to have a really hard time taking down the assignments. If you're going to not take down the assignments, you're likely not going to get it done. So how are you literate? How do you take notes? And so A is for access, B is for Braille or for literacy. C is, can you get from where you are to where you want to go independently? You must be able to travel independently. A D would be for daily living skills. Dress to impress, dress for success, dress for more and not less. How do you manage your money? How do you manage your money? Do you know how to manage your money? FBI says 95% of all financial fraud happens from someone that we know. How do you manage your money independently? All these things. So, we're going to prepare people for work. We need to help them think about how they access information, how they take notes and how they write it down and how they retrieve it later, how they travel. Can you get there independently? Can you use a cane, or do you use a canine? Your daily living skills, dressing, looking, and then if you can do all these things, then you're going to get to the E. You're going to get the education, you're going to get the experiences, and then you're going to get the employment. And I truly believe that, like, if we all work together in those areas, people help us with our access technology, our literacy skills, our travel skills, our O&M, then we're going to give ourselves the best chance we can to be successful.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you all of your panel members today. Thank you for coming. Gary, Dina, David, Michelle, you all were absolutely awesome. Thank you all for attending this webinar today. It will be recorded. So for those who didn't catch everything, you can watch it later. This conversation can continue on and on. I was a little concerned, but no, we definitely made our time and a little bit more. So thank you all again. You will hear from me soon. You all have a great day, and thank you for attending this webinar. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for hosting
Thank
us.
you. Take
And
care.
Catrice, if you can pass on my contact information, if anybody